We've got years of messages stored.
Play it from the beginning.
I met another girl, Dad. I really think this is the one. Your grandpa. His name's Jesse. Her grandpa died last week. I have to let you go. I hope that you're at peace.
So, the scene is so beautiful. I want to talk about the structure and just the aesthetic things that are happening here. So, writing-wise, I think just the rhythm and dynamics, first of all, where it sits in the greater sequence of, the first half of the second act, we just had this huge thing, and then we get to this scene, which is so quiet and so gentle, and just like creates this huge amount of focus on what's happening here. We get these 3 video messages where we see young Tom, and they tell a story across these 3 messages, right? And create great dynamics within themselves. So young Tom, he's reporting back, he's met a girl. We see Coop crying at just the time and the experiences that he's lost, and just like realizing that. Second message, we see older Tom introducing baby boy, you're a grandfather. We see the joy, Cooper waves at the camera, right? And then we get that final message where he's, explaining that grandpa died. It's heartbreaking. And we're also seeing Tom believes that Cooper's dead, and that he's not coming back, and that he abandoned them essentially.
And Jesse,
the baby died as well.
Yeah,
the baby, right?
Which is very throwaway in the delivery. Yeah,
It is, and I want to come back to that.
Yeah. So just the structure of this creates this really great dynamic of sadness and sorrow, and then a little bit of joy, and then just total heartbreak. We have the cinematography where the spinning of the ship is making the sun flash bright on his face in and out. Oftentimes in movies that annoys me, and here I think it's exactly right and really, really great. The music is quiet and beautiful and cuts off right when the final message suddenly cuts off. And then also just the performance is ridiculous from Matthew McConaughey. So just introducing these things that I think are working really, really great in this first half of the scene, and are just so successful.
Yeah. I love how quickly it gets into it also. He comes back and he's so singularly focused. He goes and sits down. They tell him there's 23 messages. He takes half a second to brace himself, but he's just so desperate to hear what has happened to his family, to hear their voices. And it's just the directness of that action, play it from the beginning, is what he says. And it speaks volumes to his care. And yeah, the just heartbreak of having missed so much of it. And in the video message dialogue, I love that it leaves these gaps in information and gaps in time, and the implication, because we spend so much of it focused on Matthew McConaughey's face and we're mostly just hearing the voice from the screen. There's almost an implication that there are more messages, right? That he is listening to maybe hours worth of messages, and we're just kind of hearing snippets in some ways. The editing doesn't necessarily indicate a time cut, but the gaps in information almost do. And making us do some work to do a 2+2 on what has happened with Tom in his life. I met another girl, right? He doesn't say I met a girl, I met another girl. So it's there's been other relationships. He's a little bit older, blah, blah, blah. And then even to the detail of, he says what happened with Jesse, or he says it's just been really hard with Jesse and all. And then he just kind of bows his head for a minute, and you're like, oh, something horrible has happened. He says, we buried him in the back 40, which is a reference to their land. It's farming term. And the back 40 acres right back there. And it's just Tom doesn't say, I'm still working on the farm, Dad. it just identifies this sense of place and speaks to this shared history. The same thing with, like, we hear about Donald when Jesse is born. We know he's still alive, but again, in an organic, believable way. Like, Donald says he's already earned the great part, so we can just leave it at that. And then it goes into, Grandpa died. We buried him in the back 40 next to Grandpa, next to Jesse, or whatever it is. I can't remember what he says. Next to Mom and Grandpa and Jesse. And it's just beautifully written dialogue and beautifully performed. And Matthew McConaughey's performance here is just staggering. And it's, they memed it to death because you can try to mock it.
Yeah.
But it's, you can't mock it. It's so beautiful and heartfelt. I was watching this with my family because we were on vacation with my parents and like all the grandkids and everybody in my family. The grandkids weren't all watching this. The older people were watching it. But everybody was weeping. We were all just weeping. And we'd all seen it before. And I was trying to be tough. I was like, stop crying, everybody. This movie isn't that good. We're all just like crying.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey's face watching this, those things is me watching this scene. It's very, very meta. But no, yeah, I mean, his performance, just from an acting perspective, it's the two emotions at once, right? The joy in seeing all of these videos and the sadness and devastation for not being there for those moments, right? So it's like he is smile crying through a lot of it, right? And like that's the thing I think that makes it so beautiful. One, it's just very believable, like his performance just feels incredibly authentic. But two, because it's not just like, oh, I'm sad that I wasn't there for it. It's I'm so happy to be seeing all this and so sad that I wasn't there for it at the same time. And it's a weird thing to act because his character was gone for like an hour or two, right? Like a very short amount of time. It's not like he was in solitary confinement for 23 years and then came out and was like, oh my gosh, I get to find. It's like he just went on a mission for a little bit for like lunch and then came back and was like, well, here's 23 years of your children's lives, right? And it's like, that's a crazy thing to conceptualize, but then also to have to perform that, and like you said, Trish, he just goes in with that urgency of just like, I need to see what I missed in the little snippet of time that my reality, the little snippet of time that I was gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of trippy in the way that I was saying the end of the movie feels trippy. It's like, this is not a human experience you can have anywhere outside of sci-fi. Like, this is a time travel experience, and that's a whole new tangle of emotions that's really cool to explore through cinema. One thing I'll just call about the editing, I really love how we do get into this rhythm of, kind of a shot of his face, shot of the screen, but then we do cut behind his chair in this kind of tracking shot coming around the chair. And that is also what signals to us that there is a time jump. We've maybe gone through many videos at this point. Now Casey Affleck's on the screen. So just really simple choices like that tell your audience subconsciously, they're like, oh, okay, time has passed. Just because you cut to a different angle. That's all you need. Yeah.
And I love the little moment where he's shaking his head. Like, there's a couple of them where he's like, basically shaking his head no. And he doesn't have a piece of dialogue there, but again, it's giving another layer to the emotion. Like, you're highlighting the layers there, Brian, in the performance, and it's the other layer of like resisting, right? It's like almost those stages of grief where it's like, no, this can't be. It's just denial. Like, no, this cannot be what it is. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, so beautiful. And there's more, and that's also what I love about the scene is the cadence and the rhythm of it. So. So Tom cuts off. We continue.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, Murph.
You son of a bitch. I never made one of these when you were still responding because I was so mad at you for leaving. And then when you went quiet, it seemed like I should live with that decision, and I had. But today's my birthday. And it's a special one because you once told me that when you came back, we might be the same age. And today I'm the age you were when you left. So it would be a real good time for you to come back.
So good. So part of what's happening in the first half of the scene also is, he wants to know about Murph. I think there's earlier we see like one video message where, I think the John Lithgow character is sort of like, Murph is upset. She didn't want to make one. It sort of sets up this expectation of maybe she'll send one later. And I think, even while we're going through the Tom stuff, there's a little bit of that, but like, is Murph going to be there? Is Murph going to be there? And so then, of course, there's this reveal. I love the blocking also, where he like reaches out to grab the thing because that loss, and then like suddenly he's like holding Murph, and she's 23 years older, and revealed Jessica Chastain, and all the stuff. And I love the editing, like you were saying, Alex. There's such great editing in this scene, but that it stays on Murph for a really long time, and Jessica Chastain's beautiful performance. And then when it creates this like wonder also of like, how is Coop reacting to this? And then you cut to his face and he's like broken. And that's just so effective, so affecting. And then at the end of the sequence, we get the cut to, and now we're with Murph. Like we just did this crazy handoff across galaxies. And now we're in Murph's story world, and we're kind of into this midpoint sequence. And it's just such a elegant handoff, and it's perfect. It's just really, really good.
And also the juxtaposition between the previous sequence, half of the scene where it's like we're watching him in real time take all of it in, and in this time we're just watching her, and it's almost like, for me at least, I'm like, I forgot about Coop for a second. I'm just watching her performance and everything, and then you cut back to him, and like you said, he's broken. It's just like such a big thing. And the only thing I'll say here, the main thing I want to say is just in the text, it's, "Hey, Dad, you son of a bitch," right? So again, going back to like script versus screen, if you're reading the script, it's very clear. I don't know if the script says, any kind of like character stuff, but just from those two lines, it's very clear. But in her performance, it's within one frame of her being on screen. It's like, I know 23 years later, she is still bitter. She is still holding all this. And obviously the very clear fact that we have not seen her up until now, right? We've seen his son grow up and everything. And then now suddenly she's here. But there's just something about the look on her face and the way she says, "Hey, Dad," that I'm just like, I can't believe how much you just communicated with 2 words and a look.
Yeah. I do think it too, in the video message from Tom, he reports on Murph like a couple of times when he's a teen. He says, Murph took Grandpa's car and crashed it, but she's okay. And then like she came back for Jesse's funeral, or Grandpa's funeral, I think is what he says. And like she doesn't come around much, but she came for that. And so we're given tiny glimpses. We're kind of primed to see Murph, where that is like very artfully done expository work that relieves this section of having to do that expository work. She doesn't have to explain that much about like what she's been up to or where she lives now. We know she doesn't live on the farm anymore. We know she and Tom are not super close anymore. We already have that expository information. So we're able to just focus on the emotional connection here and that she's trying to express. And like all she has to tell us, she doesn't even really have to do this, but she says, I didn't make one of these when you were still responding. And I've lived with the decision of never hearing from you again, basically. But I want to, but there's still, she's not so coldly detached from it all that she's not going to weep on this video message because she misses him so much. And it's just really like the balance of like catching us up, like what you're saying about the handoff, catching us up so that we know enough about Murph to get dropped right into her POV at this midpoint switch and still feel like totally emotionally involved in it is just, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. I'll say, I think this edit where we see her reaching on the video screen and then we just cut to her in this angle here, now in the room with her in a totally different place and time, conceivably maybe, is one of my favorite moments ever, definitely in this movie. And it's a kind of a splash of cold water in the way that the revelation of how much time passed when they got back from the planet. It's like it's a shock to the system, but in the best possible way, where now I'm kind of reinvigorated and like, oh wow, wait, now the movie's here. What's going to happen now? Like, what is her story? What is she doing? And that's always just the most exciting feeling in a movie, when there's a confident like slap in the face like this, that you can tell the director knows what they're doing and it lands so perfectly, but I have no idea where we're going now. And it's an exhilarating feeling, and this is one of those moments.